Welcome to the Space Dreamers podcast, a Su Madre production.
Check, check. Give me a check.
Check. Is that good?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. No? Not
You
good?
be a teeny bit closer. Just a teeny bit. Move
Like-
the thing. You don't have to move your head.
Oh.
Teeny bit.
Like that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
All right. What?
Did I see like an eye roll? What was that? It's like...
I'm eye rolling because, I don't know, doing this for the first time in a month.
I know, right?
Trying to think of what I'm going to say. All right, so welcome to the Space Dreamers podcast. The first episode we are recording after about a month-long hiatus, during which I had company, and we did a little bit of recording over the hiatus. I had Cielo record the voiceovers for the Rendezvous with Rama episode,
Ooh, nice.
which should give it a little flavor,
Yeah.
with her lovely Peruvian accent.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, and Cielo and I also recorded an episode about the Green Knight, which was it's kind of it's like fantasy, but
Yeah.
either way. So but even this isn't even really a return to form. This is we're talking about a short story, which again isn't even really science fiction. It's more like magical realism, or it's Talking Animals is like a children's story thing, but this is obviously not for children at all.
No.
So we're also going to talk probably briefly about a movie, which I think I'd rather be bit by a snake than sit through that movie again. But anyway, so we're here to talk about next episode. We're going to get back to the novels. We have 8 more novels to cover, and then we'll be done with the Arthur C. Clarke saga. But for now, we're talking about a short story, which is actually pretty long in like a standard book. It's like between 30 and 40 pages. It's called Anaconda. It's by Horacio Quiroga, who is from Uruguay.
Mm-hmm.
Did you read about him?
Yeah, a little bit.
Dude had a crazy life.
Yeah, he sounds like a very interesting person, and he definitely would not survive today's standards of being a good human.
Yeah, and he also, I feel like he just had a lot of bad luck.
Yeah.
With like death around him.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Which reflects a lot in his stories. I think you've probably only ever read this one.
Yeah.
I don't know if did you read The Feather Pillow?
No.
Well,
I'm familiar with the
right,
story
right.
because of your involvement.
So the book that you read Anaconda out of, I've read that whole book, and every story just has an undertone of darkness and like foreboding, and death is usually at the center of all the stories, and they always take place in the jungle. Even though he spent some of his life in a city, like he was educated, but what I read about him is that he kind of like found his true calling or something, I guess, when he started to live in the country. Mm-hmm.
And he went
as
back,
an adult.
he went back a couple times. Like he would go and then have to leave, and then go back and have to leave. And
yeah, I even read that like when he got sick, when he was older, he didn't want to go back to the city where they potentially could have cured him, but he was like, I'm not interested in that. But anyway, so what? If you say someone that you were acquainted with was like, you read, like, what was the last book you read? And you said Anaconda, and they said, what was that? Like, what would you say?
I said, well, it has nothing to do with the movie.
Right.
And then I would say it's about snakes, specifically vipers, poisonous snakes. I would say that it's about nature's relationship with man.
Okay.
Or vice versa. And I would like to talk about like a couple things like that I'm not entirely sure about, but I really enjoyed the story. I mean, I've never heard of like a story written from the point of view of snakes.
Neither have I. I know that
Yeah.
there is a snake character in the Jungle Book,
Right.
which is a famous story that a lot of people know.
Right. Well, it's funny. The two things that I took away from reading about the author, not about his life, but about his work, is that he was influenced by
Poe.
Poe, and wasn't it
Kipling.
Yeah, Kipling. Yeah, and so it's funny that it's like it's actually, if you think about it, it's like the story is if you took Rudyard Kipling and Edgar Allan Poe and put them together.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Jungle Book is about the interrelation, like the hierarchy of animals in the jungle, but it's all the different animals that live in that jungle, which is in India,
Right.
versus man, but less so versus man.
Right.
Because I know that in the Jungle Book they talk a lot about the introduction of like fire. They're amazed by like this thing that humans bring into the jungle, which is fire.
Yeah.
But this is just snakes.
Yeah.
But I think what I love about the story is that there are so, like, it's novel to say it's a story about snakes, like from the point of view of snakes, right? And they talk and they have like a social hierarchy. That alone is interesting. And then you introduce, if this were real, like, how would the regular snakes feel about the vipers,
Right.
the poisonous snakes? So it's kind of, initially you get the poisonous snakes versus non-poisonous snakes. So there's that division.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, humans versus nature and the introduction of humans penetrating South America,
Right.
which back then was a lot less known in like the early 1900s. You know, like even now, there are animals in the jungle that don't know humans exist.
Right.
So back then it was even more so.
Yeah.
And so then you introduce the fact like immunization.
Right.
Snakes, especially poisonous snakes, they're like, I'm good. I don't have to worry about anything because I'll just
Right.
bite you and you'll die.
Right.
And even if like there's millions of you, one of you is going to say, hey, if you go in there, you get bit, you die. That'll keep everyone else away.
Right.
But then humans are smart enough to immunize each other.
Right.
And then that just brings up a whole, like, thousands of years of evolution for snakes, millions of years of evolution for snakes. Now there's this brand new thing that they're up against that they have no natural way defending against.
But what's even more frightening is that they're being used against themselves, because you can't have the anti-venom without the venom.
Right.
So it's like, that was particularly horrifying.
Right. And also kind of what I'm getting at here is that each of these little things could be their own story.
Yeah, I could see that.
But this dude somehow puts them all into one story.
Yeah.
And then, but even further, then you introduce the cobra.
Right.
Which even without humans, even if this wasn't human versus nature and the humans just brought a cobra, you could have a whole story about snakes that live in South America meeting with cobras and being like, what the hell is this?
Right.
Like, you're a cobra with a hood?
Yeah.
And you're like, and you eat snakes? That's what's so badass about cobras, regardless of the story, is that they eat other snakes.
I know.
So there's that. And then you have the whole dog thing, how dogs are different from humans.
And how that one in particular, they couldn't believe that it had been trained to find them.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the introduction of the anaconda, which it's like you have, I do like that, how you kind of have the poisonous snakes versus the boa constrictor snakes. And then above them all is the anaconda. It's like, I'm not part of either of you because I'm more powerful than both of you. You know?
Right.
Which I like that a lot. And then, of course, the ending where you do find out that it's just super depressing. I mean, you're kind of with the snakes the whole time. And then in the end, you kind of find out that their plan is what immunizes the horses because the humans were running out of venom.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
So their idea to attack the horses actually made it so that the horses became immunized.
Right.
And then the end is a little bit of just a little weird. And I don't know, like the whole anaconda thing and how it ends with him literally saying, this is all really interesting, but it's for another story.
Yeah. So that's like part of, that was part of my sort of like, I don't really understand. So I don't really understand why the story is called Anaconda, and I don't really understand what the ending, what exactly was the ending.
Yeah, I don't really either. It sounds like, well, doesn't he say that the anaconda is in their area because of a flood anyway? Like it shouldn't naturally be there anyway?
Right.
And then it sounds like, what do the humans do with it at the end? They make it like a pet.
Yeah, they take it back, and like they realize that she's not dead.
Right.
And they take her back with them and like nurture her and hang on to her, and but then she escapes.
Right.
But then it's like I just don't understand.
It's almost like what you read will become a legend in the jungle that the anaconda will tell.
Oh.
Because the anaconda lived through the whole thing, and then in the end he or is the anaconda a she?
They're all she's.
There's one he. I thought that. I swear to God,
Nope.
it's a he said. I swear to God.
No.
Okay.
Where is it?
I'll find it after recording
show me. Okay.
or something.
Okay, because I thought they were all females.
That's what I thought
They kept
too.
saying sisters,
I know.
sisters. Yeah.
Maybe it was a typo because they just left out an S.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I swear to God there was a he.
Okay.
So, and even though I've read the story one time before, I was totally tricked when, dude, I love the story. I think it's so good. I think it's fast paced, and you also get so much. Like when the cobra attacks, what's it, Cruzada?
Yeah, Cruzada. Yeah, Cruzada.
When the cobra attacks that snake, you're like, well, that
I know.
No, so long for that snake.
Right.
But then it was actually part of the plan.
Yeah.
And I love when that snake comes to, and she's kind of like struggling. It's such I just feel like the story strikes such a good balance of feeling bad for the snakes, but also thinking like they're in their own element, like they're in the jungle, like,
yeah, and
like they're worried about this human problem, but they don't act like humans, and that like life is so sacred that humans just are always trying to stay alive.
Oh yeah,
like there are plenty of parts in this the story where they're like, when I come back, if I come back,
right, and
it's kind of just like this is all part of life in the jungle.
Like, this is our reality.
And I love I don't know, I love the scene where this first snake goes to just basically scout from the roof.
Yeah.
And it falls.
Yeah.
And even that part is surprising. You're like, oh shit. But the humans are like, oh, it's just this kind of snake.
Yeah.
Like, let's catch it.
Yeah.
But she manages to escape.
Right.
I thought it was interesting that like the rattlesnake was there. I didn't know there were rattlesnakes in the jungle.
Yeah, there's.
I thought they were in the desert.
We have a rattlesnake here in New Hampshire.
Yeah, but this ain't the South American jungle.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, I don't think I thought of that either. But they've got to be everywhere.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
it was fascinating. Like, I at one point reading it was like, oh yeah, this isn't true. Like, meaning like these aren't really snakes telling the story. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was that plausible.
Right.
I know that sounds weird, but like.
So I feel like we should give maybe like a sort of a plot description, just in terms of like what makes the story unique. It's almost like Animal Farm before Animal Farm, you know? Because a lot of it's about like politics and like hierarchy of snakes.
Yeah, the Congress, they meet as a.
Yeah, they call it a Congress.
Yeah.
And so you basically have snakes realizing that men have come into the jungle and set up a house.
Yeah.
And they have a dog and they have horses. And the humans are attempting to immunize themselves and the horses and the dog, which is already immunized, against the snakes. Mm-hmm. So it's like a scientific operation. They're not there to kill snakes or to like destroy the jungle.
But they're there for a more devious reason, if you think about it, which is to capture them, keep them alive, and, you know, take their venom, which is obviously very important to them. Right.
Obviously, like that, the point of that is to immunize humans so that they can go into the jungle and exploit it.
Right.
Which is what people do.
Right.
So one snake realizes that's happening, so he calls or she calls
Well, no, she doesn't know what's happening. She sees them coming in, remember?
Right.
And she's like, "Oh my God, we gotta have a meeting."
Yeah, and I love that description, how she like goes all over the jungle and like finds everyone.
everybody,
And some of them she couldn't find.
Yeah.
She's like, oh well.
Oh, and about how, and I liked it was interesting, the hierarchy was based on numbers. So it didn't really matter like who was better, or they talk about beauty a lot, who was more beautiful, and who was smarter. It's not about that. It's just about sheer representation, like numbers.
Right, which makes sense in like nature.
Right.
Like evolution.
Yeah. Like who was more, how many, like of the species, which ones were more prevalent,
right,
are the ones that have more power.
So they eventually get a congress together, which convenes in a cave on the side of a mountain where the rattlesnake lives.
Yes.
And it's interesting because it's clearly like venomous snakes don't like regular snakes. Or in the story, we'll call them vipers, don't like snakes. Mm-hmm. They refer to snakes that aren't poisonous as just snakes.
Yeah.
And the poisonous ones are vipers.
Yeah.
So it's like vipers don't like snakes, but every once in a while it appears they come together for this congress when there's something that affects all slithery creatures.
Right, yeah.
So that's what they do. And so they're kind of contentious, they're like, don't like each other, but they have to meet for this meeting.
Yeah.
And the plan is one of them goes just to scout out and find out what's going on. And it's interesting that the snakes understand Spanish.
Yeah.
In our case, English, but in this case, Spanish.
Yeah.
They understand, when the humans talk, they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Which is weird, but I like it.
Yeah.
So they find out then she finds out from that meeting that they're there to, first she bites the dog. Isn't that when she bites the dog?
Yes.
Or is that later? I can't remember. Initially, someone goes on the roof, falls into the house, and then escapes.
Yeah, well, they send a regular snake.
Right.
So the first one who discovers what's going on is a viper, but then they send for their reconnaissance. They just send a regular snake.
And isn't that the part where the venomous one is trying to? He's like, "Wait, catch up! I can't go as fast as you." Because they say that vipers they're poisonous. They're not as fast.
Right.
So she's trying to catch up to the snake, and the snake's like, "Listen, I got things to do here."
Yeah.
I love that. So
yeah.
So then. Eventually,
then she comes back and tells them what she's found.
So then a viper goes.
And
she bites the dog.
Yes.
And all the dog does is yelp.
Right.
But it doesn't fall over. It doesn't die.
Yeah.
It doesn't
get
paralyzed.
Grab her with a noose.
Right. So they get her with a noose.
Like
they throw her in a cage.
Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she meets the cobra.
Yeah.
Which that part is so cool. It's like sci-fi, man. It's meeting the unknown.
Right.
Because that's what blows her mind is when the hood comes out.
Yeah.
And she's like, I have never seen that before.
Yeah.
So they realize, and she tells them, I'm from India.
Mm-hmm.
So you've never met me before.
Mm-hmm. I think they'd heard of her though. Like they've heard of that. She was familiar, but had never met one.
So then the king cobra, it also like throughout the story, there's this constant, like I said, there's a hierarchy, and it's almost like every snake kind of thinks they're the hot shit. Thinks they're the best.
Yeah.
Regardless of what even they're measuring that by.
Yeah.
So the king cobra is just very much like, I'm above you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also that line in there where she tells him, oh, by the way, I eat snakes.
Yeah.
Like, that's my prey.
Yeah.
So basically, don't fuck with me.
Right.
So then the cobra attacks our main viper character, and the dude, one human finds her. He's like, oh, she's dead, and throws her over the fence.
Yeah.
And he doesn't realize that she's really just paralyzed.
Yeah.
So then, what are they doing to the cobra in the house?
They're
extracting the venom?
Yeah, yeah.
So while the cobra's getting its venom extracted, the one who was just recently paralyzed bites the guy in the foot.
Yeah.
And then the cobra bites the guy as well.
Yeah.
And I don't
right
later
in a vein.
Yeah, later don't the humans or someone mentions how like that seemed mathematical?
Yes.
Like how could that have happened naturally?
Right.
Suggesting that what
they're
we know
together.
is that they're organized.
Right.
So then she brings the king cobra back to the cave, and they're like, who's this crazy looking mofo? And she opens her hood, and they're like, oh shit. And then I think that's when the anaconda comes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because then the meeting's gotten bigger. Like there are even more snakes.
Yeah.
And vipers have showed up.
So anyway, long story short, they decide through some debate. I think some of them think we should attack the dog first. Some of them think we should attack the horses because the horses mean that they can bring in more supplies.
Right.
So they decide to attack the horses.
Right.
But
remember, it's like they're kind of divided at that point because the cobra is the one who wants to attack the horses.
Yeah, because the cobra says the cobra's been there for a year, remember?
Yeah.
And that part's brutal when she talks about how demoralizing it is how they treat her.
Right.
And like, if animals have any amount of, I don't know, self-awareness, then the way we treat them is horrible.
Well, just keeping them in captivity.
Dude, that right there is proof that God doesn't exist. Because if he did, why would he let us do that to animals? To do all the horrible things that we do to animals. Not just to each other, but to animals, dude.
Right. No, it's
horrible.
You're totally right, because I really think, like, obviously, death is part of the life cycle. So you can't fault, God for that, right? The act of like hunting and like how animals live off of other animals, it's like, again, part of the bigger cycle. But the whole concept of captivity and imprisonment is really messed up. That's the thing, because that doesn't happen in nature.
Right. I also think zoos are horrible.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
I understand that some zoos, they're like they're like helping animals, but the fact they put them on display, I don't know if that's how they pay for that shit, but like, it's so disgusting to see a tiger in a fucking cage.
Right. I agree. I think that because a lot of them zoos, do things under the guise of conservation.
Right.
So I just think there's got to be a better way to do it, man.
I agree. And the whole, like, you bring kids there to be like, look at all the creatures that exist on Earth. But what you're doing is implanting the vision of an animal in a cage in that kid's brain.
Right.
And I don't think that's a good thing.
I mean, there are a lot of zoos out there that don't have cages. But even them...
Does that make it a zoo?
Yeah, because they're captive. It's captivity. Mm. But again, even that, like, I think we're teaching the wrong lessons. We're teaching the right lessons the wrong way.
It's just cruel.
Yeah.
But either way.
Yeah.
So the basic plan then is to attack the horses. What?
No, I just thought, because it's just like in this story how humans are using the snakes to immunize themselves against the snakes, and it's like the same thing. We're keeping animals captive and saying it's because we're saving them.
Yeah. Like,
no, we need to leave them alone in nature.
Right.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so...
It's bothersome.
So that part is really cool.
Yeah.
Because then it kind of switches to the human's point of view.
Right.
Where they're like, something's going on in the barn. Figaro, or whatever, I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
Yeah.
And he goes, and he says there's 60 to 80 snakes just going at it on the horses.
It's crazy.
Just attacking them. And he said that they mentioned that he detects intelligence because the snakes are dodging the kicks.
Yeah.
Which is, like, there's so many little tiny details in the story that I think are amazing.
Oh, definitely. How about just the fact that all of them have names? All of the different snakes have names, which I looked up a few of them. They're related to, the names have relations to like what their actual species names are.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And like how, we were talking, like, there's like just these little details about like the types of snakes that each one of them are. Yeah. Like, it's the details are very much appreciated.
Yeah. And then, so by the end, you kind of realize that the snakes are actually saving the horses' lives, because he mentions that the horses would die without without a daily dose of venom, the horse will die. Mm-hmm. And so by attacking the horses with their venom,
they save them.
They're immunizing the horses and saving their lives, which is just dooming the snakes. And then the snakes retreat to the cave and they get fucking slaughtered, except for the anaconda.
But remember, there's the beef between the anaconda and the cobra.
Oh, yes.
And that starts in the meeting before they go and attack the horses. And so remember, there's like a little bit of they're like when the snakes realize that they just saved the horses. So following the cobra's advice, she was the one that wanted to go attack the horses or brought that, up.
Right. Okay.
They're very suspect of her. And so then there's the issue of, do we retreat to the grotto where they were having those meetings, or do we scatter? And she says, the cobra says, we all need to go to the grotto. We all need to go and, hide together. And that's when they decide that
Congress is over, so they can kill each other.
Yes, exactly. And that's when the anaconda is like, oh, good, now I can, attack her.
Yeah.
And so what I think
Why
is
would
really...
they listen to her a second time, though? That seems weird.
Well, I think because that's what everyone wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like, be safe. Like, they felt like it was safe.
Right.
And so they didn't want, to go off on their own.
Right.
But that's the sad part, though, is that...
Well, I think they also realize that the sun is coming up.
Yeah.
Because they know that snakes just don't operate well in daytime.
Yeah, and that's the sad part, though, is that, like, by neither going to the grotto nor fleeing, they stay and they fight, but they all perish.
Right. And yeah, the anaconda and the cobra have one final showdown, and the anaconda wins.
Yeah. That was really cool. The description of how she killed the cobra was really neat.
Yeah. I did take note of 3 lines that I love that I'd like to talk about.
My favorite parts were when they were making fun of her, saying she had a sombrero in her throat.
Yeah.
That was hilarious, the cobra. Because they got like kind of... Actually, it was funny because I was like, yeah, this sounds like a bunch of ladies sitting around. Like, these are the things that they would say. She said, it says, a dog immunized against any bite, even that of this lady with the sombrero in her throat.
Yeah.
And then I think they even made like another mention of it too. Yeah, no, I mean, that was something that I did think occasionally, is that there were things that just didn't seem like it was very smooth, and I thought to myself, that's got to be a translation issue. I don't think it detracts from the story in any way, but it did, and then I think there were a couple words that I felt...
What do you mean smooth? Wouldn't smooth mean the translator was doing a good job?
No, I said they weren't smooth.
Oh, weren't smooth. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I felt like it was a weird way to put something together.
Right.
And then there were a couple other times where, like, I felt like the same words got used over, and I thought, again, that's probably just a translation thing. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But anyway, I always think that when I read something translated.
Like, one of my favorite authors of all time is Japanese and never wrote a word in English.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I love him is because his writing is so good. But it's like, how much of that is the translator?
Oh, I know. I always wonder. I always wonder.
But... So I just have 3 little sections here that I would love to read and talk about. So, chapter 2. This line. Man and devastation are synonymous from time immemorial in the whole kingdom of animals.
Yeah.
That line is amazing.
Yeah, because it's like, so it's just the truth.
And even this whole paragraph is great. The next day, Lanceolada's primary concern was the danger that presented the men's arrival over her entire family. Man and devastation are synonymous from time immemorial in the whole kingdom of animals. For vipers, in particular, disaster was personified in 2 horrors: the machete, stirring the very belly of the jungle, and the fire, annihilating the forest, and with it, the hidden dens. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
This line is amazing. This is a viper's... Well, it doesn't matter. At 3 a.m, the assembly dissolved. The vipers returned to everyday life, moved away in different directions, unknown to each other, silent, gloomy. Simultaneously, at the bottom of the cavern, the rattlesnake remained coiled and immobile, fixing her hard glass eyes on the dream of 1,000 paralyzed dogs. Dude.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Yeah.
And then this last one. No, Anaconda interrupted. Allow me, Nyakanina. When a being is well-formed, agile, strong, and swift, he seizes his enemy with the energy of nerves and muscles that constitutes his honor, like all the creation fighters. This is how the hawk, the ounce cat, the tiger, we, all noble birth beings, hunt. But when he is clumsy, heavy, unintelligent, and therefore incapable of fighting for life, then he has a pair of fangs to treacherously murder. That's so good.
Mm-hmm.
We're separate from snakes, so we don't think about. I mean, obviously they're different, but if you were one of them, what would you think about the other?
Right.
You know?
Right. Because we don't. You're right.
To most people, all snakes are icky.
Yeah.
But to others, you don't think one may be more noble than another.
Right.
You know? So.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Overall, yeah, I love the story. And I read that entire book, and obviously the feather pillow takes the cake.
Mm-hmm.
But Anaconda is the one that, obviously it's the longest, but it's the one that just sticks out to me the most as being something that shouldn't be forgotten. I think it's an amazing story, and Horacio Quiroga in English is not the easiest thing to find. And so I think all people should read Anaconda and other things by him.
Yeah, even finding anything out about him, everything that came up in a Google search was in Spanish.
Right.
Yeah.
And even the country he's from,
yeah,
is the least well known, I think, to Westerners of South America. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think stories like this are really important because, we really need to give more thought to the other creatures that we share this planet with.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And I think anything even remotely like this story is important.
And even more than just animals, Rudyard Kipling, is that a British dude?
Is he?
Just writing about India?
I think so.
Okay, fuck that. This is a South American dude writing about South America. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it's more important than,
Yeah.
the Western person writing about the jungle,
Yeah, definitely agreed.
What are you looking up there? Something swimming around in the river.
Just Rudyard Kipling. He is he's English, but he was born in India.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, we could
as
have
a colonizer.
Yeah, oh yeah. I was just gonna say we could have a whole nother conversation about that.
I like how the rattlesnake is called Terrifica, and they called her Terry at one point.
No, they never did in this one.
We must have different translators.
Yeah.
Okay, Atraz. That's a snake, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says his eyes fiery.
Mm-mm.
That's not in yours?
No, it's a she.
Okay.
Yeah, because in the beginning it says Cruzada was there. Vibora de la Cruz, called Viper of the Cross in the south, the powerful and audacious rival of Nuid's beauty. And then it says atrocious Atraz was there, a sufficiently oracular name she had.
Who's the translator? Let me see the front. What does it say?
Margaret Sayers Payden.
Okay, yeah, this is Joaquin de la Sierra.
Yeah.
This is copyright 2021, so maybe this is a new translation.
Maybe. But I don't think there were any male snakes.
Yeah, see, I didn't either, but that's when,
Yeah.
so that stuck out to me. When I read his fiery eyes, I was like, wait a minute. And it's interesting, too, that Horacio Quiroga lived in the jungle. He hacked the shit out of that place with a machete, I'm sure. You know what I'm saying?
Probably.
But, so anyway, and he's got an email in there. I might hit him up for an interview.
Who?
Joaquin.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Horatio. I was like, dude.
No. No. So let's talk a little bit about Reminiscence.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Great movie till the end. Come
Really?
on now.
I turned it off before I even got to the end because I thought
really?
it was terrible the whole time.
No, I thought it's funny. It's really funny as I was like getting into it. I did think to myself, "Bet Jared hates this because it was totally had that gumshoe."
It's just a mystery.
Like, yeah, but even like the way it was like narrated and like like it was like that. Isn't that what it is? Gumshoe, like the detective
Film noir. Like noir.
Yeah, like it was just, I was like, oh, this is hokey as all get out. And it's funny because the thing though is that it had some really great qualities going into it. But again, by the time you got to the end, it's a straight up stupid love story.
I thought the only things that were redeeming about it, like I was surprised when they were on that like patio thing and then he was in a memory.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool, but I also thought the fight scene in the bar when he was underwater,
Yeah.
that fight scene was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Other than that, and I think the world is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
the
I liked
whole,
the world,
like,
the world that was built. Yeah, it was
how
neat.
everyone only came out at night,
Mm-hmm.
and which that's cool because that allows all the scenes to be dark and at night
Right.
and film noir-esque.
Right, exactly.
It's like it gives a real reason for that to be happening.
Yeah.
And I liked how like every time, like even though they kept the ocean at bay, the oceans
Yeah.
were, the roads were still wet.
Yeah, and it was always like lapping.
Yeah.
The waves were like lapping at the things that they built. Yeah, it was definitely, the world building was interesting. So basically what we're talking about is the sea levels rose. And
Like several stories, maybe like 5 stories high.
Yeah.
Above, and they're in Miami.
yeah, it takes place in Miami. And so yeah, like there are like all these like bridges and everyone's on boats and the cities are all like walls were built so that you can live in the cities, like parts of the cities, because the other parts are underwater. So like that was kind of cool, like how it was like they just built these huge dams, and then just talking about like the rich versus poor and how like the rich were the only ones that had like legitimate land, like
Right.
like country land, like countryside, like trees and
he goes to that like mansion or whatever.
Yeah.
In the bayous.
yeah.
It also, there's something about stories that take place in like the South with like bayous and shit. And I'm just like, just personally, I don't find
It
that
depends on
imagery interesting.
It for me, it highly depends on the story being told. Sometimes I enjoy it, other times I don't. But honestly though, like New Orleans, even existing with the sea levels that high, it wouldn't happen.
Well, I think they're just trying to be topical. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
Because like I heard, like there are drains in Miami that are supposed to drain water into the ocean, and right now, the water is coming up
Right.
from the drains.
Right.
So I think that's why they make it take place in Miami.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting to see, like, imagine if we avoid disaster in its many forms that people say is coming to humanity, what people will think looking back at the art that we make now. Because what's so interesting is, like, he echoes the exact same sentiment that the kid says in Ready Player One, where he basically says, I can't remember. Basically what he says is there's nothing to look forward to, so people are obsessed with what's in the past.
Right.
And so in Ready Player One, I think he says the real world sucks.
Yeah.
That's why we're all obsessed with this fake world.
Right.
And it's like, to look back at this time, I wonder what people will think, like that's what we were making our cautionary tales about.
Yeah.
Whereas you look back in the 50s, it was all about like nuclear war.
Mm-hmm.
And because like Godzilla is
Right.
that, and that other one there with the guy with the robot. I've talked about it before.
With the robot?
Yeah, the alien with the robot. The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Oh, yeah.
That dude comes down and basically says, "Stop using nukes."
Right.
So anyway, I just think. Yeah. So I will say, with the current state of movies, Reminiscence until September 31st. I don't even know when this is going to go live. It might be after. I don't even know. But it's free to watch on HBO if you have HBO. Yeah. So obviously, like, you're not losing much by watching it.
Right.
It's in the theaters. But what I will say is don't listen to me, because when I saw the trailers for this movie, I was like, no, that looks stupid. But then I saw that it was to watch for free on HBO, and it's new, and so I thought, why don't we talk about it on the podcast?
Yeah.
Whereas we were going to talk about a movie that's really old.
Right. I would have been disappointed if I had paid money to see this in a theater.
Definitely.
However, I was interested in, you know, where it was going and the world that it created. But again, like I said, I was just kind of let down at the end because it's just a typical love story, which some people are totally into.
So
but
what is her? What's the ending? Like, what is her? What's her deal?
That's the thing, is like throughout it, you know, she's portrayed as like a woman of mystery, and you know, you don't know her, you know, blah blah blah. But like, there was nothing ominous about her. She was just a lady with a drug problem at one point in her life, who was trying to do something good.
Okay.
You know, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I played along. I was like into it. I thought we were gonna find something out about someone, and it just didn't. You know, like, it's not even like it's not even worth me explaining it. Like,
yeah,
you know, and like, I just think that my biggest issue with the film is it was trying to do too much. You know, it's like you had these interesting concepts, but you. Like, it went in too many different directions. Like, it was about the world, you know, this post-apocalyptic dystopian world. It was about this, you know, the technology with the memories. It was about, you know, like the human condition at the time. But then you also had to throw in the mystery and the crime and the action stuff. And then there's the whole thing with the with his, you know, employee who's also like his really good friend, and you know, Thandie Newton is wonderful. I thought the whole cast was great. Everyone in it.
The writing was bad though.
Yes,
because those two only talk about two things the entire movie,
right? Like
him being obsessed, and like she has a drinking problem. It's just like, oh, good Lord.
And then did you get to the daughter part?
No.
Yeah, it just gets.
Oh, she had a daughter.
She had a daughter,
and he meets her. I got pretty far, dude. I got like an hour and 20 minutes, maybe. Or he doesn't meet her.
Her? No, he doesn't.
He
meet
met
the
some lady
daughter
who gave him some shit. I don't know.
Okay.
Gave him shit.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there was just too much, and then for the end of it just to be about him and his obsession and his, like, her being like his one true love that he did. I don't know. It just
what happened?
fell flat.
Did she leave him intentionally?
No,
like
he finds out that she had. So her interactions with him from the very, 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 very beginning, the entire thing was set up to get those memory cards from him.
Oh.
That was the whole point. However, she did truly fall in love with him.
Yeah, that's been done a million times.
Exactly. So anyway, so basically, like, she had to leave because she stole the stuff. She had to leave, and then when she all of a sudden got a conscience and was like, you know, you can kill this person, but you're not going to touch the kid. And this is all very convoluted, I know, but and so she takes the kid, so she has to disappear. But then she comes back for him, and you know the whole part where he finds the earring outside.
Yeah,
that really was her knocking on the door.
Oh, okay.
So she really did come back for him. But the bad, corrupt police cop guy, he takes her. He's like, you're in trouble, let's go. And so there's this whole cheesy thing where she's talking to the cop guy, but really she's talking to him. What's his name? Nick, I think.
I don't remember.
So she's really talking to him because remember that whole thing about like how close can you get in these memories?
Oh,
yeah. So basically he like jumps in the machine and it like it's it was just ridiculous. But anyway, she kills herself.
What?
So the cop doesn't kill her, she kills her. self. Like it just, and then
I don't even know what this has
and
to
then
do
he
with the
ends
movie.
up. That's what I'm saying. And then he ends up. Basically, the movie ends with him sitting in his contraption, like 50 years later. Like he just chose to constantly relive memories.
Damn.
Which doesn't make any sense because who the hell is taking care of him? You can't just sit in a water thing and expect to, like, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, It just got stupid. The end got stupid. There could have been a million ways you ended it, and it was ended stupidly.
Yeah. I also just wonder, I think people who like mysteries just like that whole, just that everything is kind of cheesy and unbelievable because you're not supposed to believe it because nothing you're being told is going to be real. That's the whole point of a mystery.
Right.
Like, I just didn't buy it. Like, she goes in there to what? Because she lost her keys. Like, how much does it cost to go in that thing? Because you lost your keys.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I get that it's a setup, but any old idiot would be like,
right.
You're a femme fatale, obviously, and you lost your keys.
Right.
Please.
Right.
And then, like, when he's in the police thing early on in the movie, before you realize she disappeared, and there's that like conversation that he overhears of the powerful guy being like mentioning a she.
Yeah.
It's like, gee, I wonder who they're talking about.
Oh, but that's not who they're talking about.
Okay, exactly my point. Like, it's not going to be what you think.
Oh. I get what you're saying.
You're supposed to think, there's
see,
only one mysterious woman in this movie, so it must be the red-haired lady. But then it's someone else. Like,
right. So, see, that's the thing. I didn't actually have an issue with the mystery part. Like, the mystery part was fine. Like, the actual, like, thing with the tycoon guy and the woman and then the illegitimate son, like, that didn't bother me. Like, none of that bothered me. I actually enjoyed that part of the mystery. The part of the mystery that I thought was ridiculous was the hype up of her being a not good person, but she really was a totally good person.
oh, okay.
It's like, gag me with a spoon.
They're also like, there's so many scenes where they, like, and this happens not just in mysteries, where they, like, they just let him go.
Yeah.
Like, especially when the dude sees his tattoo and he's like, you were in the war? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, if I see you again, I won't miss.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Mr.
Exactly.
Ex Machina.
Well,
there.
that's exactly. And that's pretty much the ending is like he confesses his role, which that was the part that I almost didn't even understand. It's like he committed a crime, I guess, with the memory machine thing because he like used it inappropriately, I think. I don't know. So like he has a part in it so like that he can be convicted of a crime. So then like the DA lady, like the friend, you know, like because he's friendly with her because he was helping with all those cases, you know, like she basically like agrees to like cut him a deal at the end, and the deal that is cut is that he can live in the memory machine.
Oh.
It's just, and that's what I'm saying, like here we are wasting our breath on this dumb crap when there were so many interesting things going on in the film.
Yeah.
And so that's what the problem is for me with this movie is that it totally grabbed my interest in the beginning and then slowly dissolved into something so contrite at the end.
Yeah. I will say I was interested until like recently after he woke up from being with her.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, I was interested from that just because it tricked me. But then I'm like, so we as the audience missed everything between her disappearing and now when he's waking up from the machine. So like we're just gonna have to be told about that, you know? So for me it's just like, oh good
yeah,
Lord.
because then he kind of pieces it together by like finding different memories and then blah blah blah. And so I mean, like, again, that's what I mean, like it had.
Dude, and speaking of, sorry to interrupt, but speaking of what you were saying in this story, how there are repeated words.
Yeah.
If I had to hear Tandy Newton refer to that guy's pasty ass one more time, I was like, can you, like, what is this movie rated? Just say that they're fucking.
Oh, it's rated PG-13.
Okay. Dude. Yeah. It's like, why suggest it with the same, like,
Right.
And also pasty, like, is it because he's white and you're black?
Yeah,
like, what are you trying to do by saying
Right.
pasty ass over and over? Like,
Did you get to the piano scene? The whole fighting with where he was fighting with the bad cop guy, and he's like, I love that actor, by the way. But he's like fighting with the cop guy all through the building, and the building's like full of water, and
sounds dope.
then the guy gets his like, they use like there's a piano in a room. So then there's this whole thing where like the piano like falls through the floor, but because they're up because the water's high. So there's an entire scene that takes place underwater.
That's cool.
See, that's the problem.
Sounds not cool.
Right. So that's the problem, is that it's when you see it, you're just like, well, this was an excuse to, like, you know what I mean? Like, it felt like it was like we didn't need that.
Yeah.
Like it was one of those things. It was just like it was like, oh, obviously you're going to include a scene like this because you can.
Yeah, that doesn't sound
not because
I was so interested. You're saying a fight with a piano, and then when you say they go underwater, I'm like, that doesn't sound interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's
because and I've read the reviews too. It's I knew that this movie was going to be bad going in.
Yeah.
It has very bad reviews.
Yeah,
but one of the things that kind of piqued my interest was that in a lot of the reviews, they say there are a couple good set pieces, and it sounds like that's one of them.
Probably.
And another one, I was engaged when she came in, when he was being drowned, and she came in and shot the place up.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like underwater, and you see the bullet go by him underwater.
Yeah.
That whole thing, I was into that.
I
And
love that.
Especially because I was like, what is he going to do?
Yeah.
And then the girl shows up and saves his life. Like,
Yeah.
dude, that is your partner.
Right.
I was engaged, but every other scene, I was basically like looking at my phone until eventually I was like, I just turned it off.
Right. Well, the fight scene that I'm talking about that involves the piano, it's a very long scene. Like, they start fighting in one area.
Sick.
And then it just keeps going, like moves all throughout this one building, you know.
I might have to go back and watch that.
Yeah, and so like it's really interesting. There were parts about it, it's like very well choreographed. Like,
Sweet.
It's cool. But then, like I said, it culminates, and it is actually cool. Like it was like you know, he's like he has to, like, he's trying to defend himself, but he knows he can't kill this guy because he needs him for his memories. So
that's pretty cool.
Right. So it's basically like what happens is he like you're like, yeah, he's winning the fight. You know, he like gets him stuck in the piano, and then the piano falls down through the floor. It just starts sinking. And he's
Does
like,
he have to go down and save him?
yeah, he's like, oh crap, you know? So then like he jumps down there. So then there's like a little underwater fight scene,
Got it.
you know?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. So like, that's what I'm saying. Like it's cool, but at the same time, it's like you're kind of rolling your eyes because you're just like, oh,
There's just too much going on.
Yeah.
Like sci-fi mystery. I'm trying to think of like.
Right.
I feel like who's ever done that well, other like Blade Runner is.
Yeah.
I think it's like the only one
Yeah.
like sci-fi mystery. I don't know.
Yeah. And like that's the thing is like, it was too much. Just too much.
And it's long. It's like 2 hours.
Yeah, it's just too much.
So anyway, did you see who made it?
No, I don't know who it is.
It's a woman.
Yeah, Lisa Joy.
But it would appear to me, and I'm not saying that she didn't fuck up completely, and who knows whose fault it was, but she wrote and directed it.
Right.
It's her directorial debut, and she is the one. I think she's like the showrunner of Westworld.
Oh, okay, that would make sense because a lot of people in the movie
Actors.
are in. Yeah.
So it would appear to me that was like her,
I
chance
gotcha.
to make a splash.
Right.
And I think because of COVID, I mean.
Yeah.
What people really pay attention to is money, in
Right.
that business. And because of COVID, that movie, I think the budget is like 60-something million, and it made $2 million its opening weekend. It's not going to make any money.
No.
And it doesn't help that like in the times of COVID, I would argue the only way you're going to get people to watch a movie is word of mouth, like
Right.
hype.
Right.
And that movie's not going to get any kind of
No.
word of mouth or hype.
It's really funny. It's like you just said, it's, her directorial debut or whatever, but like, and that like in the business that I'm involved in, like in my career where we do we do t-shirts, right?
Yeah.
And people come in all the time and they have these like grandiose ideas and they want to print this like full color, crazy, insane, 12 colors, and they're going to spend all this money and it's going to cost them a lot. And, it's a difficult process. And, like from our perspective, we're like, it's not even going to really look all that great, blah, blah. And then you see other people come in and they just have one color logo and they stick it on a t-shirt and they pick some fun ink colors and, stuff like that. And the difference is always that the simpler does better. So it's like when you first start out, it's like you should, I don't know, like hold back a little.
Right.
And I know that might sound weird. And people would probably, but like, I feel like that's true. If you just like hold back and like focus on something and do that one thing really well, then you can keep adding to it as you get. So it's like hearing that this was a directorial debut. It makes me even sadder that like too much was going on.
Yeah.
If it had just been dialed back in a couple areas, it could have really been good.
Yeah. I mean, the concept interests me.
Right.
Yeah. And another one I think of when it comes to that is when Christopher Nolan was like, could do no wrong, which I don't think is that anymore with weird movies like Tenet.
Yeah.
His cinematographer got a chance to direct a movie.
Yeah.
His directorial debut. And it was like Christopher Nolan was so hot that it was like Christopher Nolan's cinematographer is directing a movie. I'm there.
Right.
And it was that movie Transcendence, which has a similar title, Reminiscence. These stupid one-word, high-concept sci-fi movies. Just ease up on it. The one where Johnny Depp gets downloaded into a computer.
What the heck? I definitely didn't see that.
Exactly, dude. It was. I haven't even seen it, dude. It's supposed to be garbage, and it's huge budget.
Right.
So many famous actors, and everyone just banks on like someone's directorial debut. It's like, don't do that.
And why would you even want to put yourself in that position? Because once you do something so huge, where do you go from there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Be
like Quentin Tarantino. Make your first movie that takes place entirely in a warehouse with like 4 actors.
Exactly.
And then make your way up to something crazy.
Exactly.
Like Inglourious Bastards or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, okay, let's wrap it up. So the next episode should be back to the normal novels. We're talking about Imperial Earth.
Ooh.
And for us right now in real time, we got to get back to the fucking grind.
Yes.
So we can get this shit over with before 2021 ends.
Yes.
1 week from today, we're going to talk about that book.
Nice.
It's like 300 pages. Can you read it in a week?
Hopefully.
All right. Yeah, hopefully for me too.
We'll find out.
All right. Okay, so thank you for joining me, and watch Reminiscence if you're super bored and you like sci-fi mysteries and femme fatales and Hugh Jackman.
They were good performances. They were good performances. So if you like the actors, and you don't have to pay money for it if you have HBO, check it out.
And read anything by Horacio Quiroga, because if you've never heard of him, then you probably will be blown away by his unique style.
I'm very glad that I read this story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of The Space Dreamers, a Sue Madre production. See you next time.